Trump's border security approach is crashing and burning, and the Five Eyes meeting in London just exposed how badly his administration is failing. While Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem sat with allied nations discussing border cooperation, Trump's own policies at home are creating chaos, legal disasters, and international embarrassment. This isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about how Trump's extremist agenda is isolating America from its closest allies and destroying the very security partnerships he claims to champion. So what really happened at this meeting, and why does it reveal the complete collapse of Trump's border strategy? To understand the full scope of this failure, we need to look at what the Five Eyes Alliance actually represents, and how Trump's policies are undermining decades of international cooperation. The Five Eyes intelligence sharing partnership between the United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand represents one of the most successful multilateral security arrangements in modern history. These nations have worked together since World War II, sharing critical intelligence and coordinating responses to global threats. The alliance has traditionally focused on counterterrorism, cyber threats, and organized crime, including the very migrant smuggling networks that were supposedly the focus of this London meeting. But here's where Trump's approach becomes a problem. While Kristi Noem was in London talking about cooperation and shared security concerns, Trump's actual policies back home are creating the exact opposite of what these allies want to see. In fact, Trump claims 0 people entered the country illegally last month.
You know, last month, you probably read, we had 0 people enter our country illegally. And over the last number of years, you'd have hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people a week pour into our country, totally unvetted and unchecked. What they've done to our country is so sad, and we can never forget it. But we're unleashing all forms of energy, including natural gas, oil. Under the last year of Biden, China added 11 times as much power generation capacity as did the United States. Can you imagine that 11 times?
Contrasting it with what he describes as hundreds of thousands of people a week in previous years. He's also been boasting about unleashing all forms of energy production, including natural gas and oil, while making comparisons about China's power generation capacity. These grandiose claims stand in stark contrast to the reality of his administration's chaotic enforcement actions and the international criticism they're generating. The Trump administration's program of street raids, mass detentions, and large-scale deportations has drawn not just domestic criticism, but international condemnation from these very same Five Eyes partners. Think about the absurdity of this situation. Noem is sitting in an 18th century London headquarters discussing how to tackle migrant smuggling gangs with ministers from countries that have publicly criticized Trump's approach to immigration. The newly appointed UK Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, welcomed Noem to discuss new measures to protect our borders. But Britain's own centre-left Labour government has been struggling with its own migration challenges. 30,000 people crossing the English Channel in small boats this year alone. The difference is that Britain is trying to solve these problems through international cooperation and legal frameworks, while Trump is using tactics that violate basic human rights and constitutional protections. The meeting also included discussions about combating child sexual abuse and the spread of opioids, serious issues that require sustained international cooperation. But how can America's allies trust the Trump administration to work effectively on these complex, long-term challenges when his own domestic policies are creating legal chaos and undermining the rule of law? This is where Trump's failures become most apparent. While Noem was talking about cooperation in London, back home the Trump administration was facing an avalanche of legal challenges to its immigration policies. Federal courts have repeatedly blocked Trump's fast-track deportation procedures, finding them unconstitutional violations of due process. The administration faced at least 50 multi-plaintiff legal challenges to its immigration policies, with lawsuits on 3 separate issues reaching the Supreme Court. These aren't just legal technicalities, they represent fundamental violations of American constitutional principles that our allies depend on for stable, predictable cooperation. The American Civil Liberties Union and other organizations have successfully challenged Trump's expansion of expedited removal, his mass detention policies, and his attempts to strip legal protections from hundreds of thousands of immigrants. Federal Judge Gia Cobb has repeatedly ruled against the administration's attempts to speed up deportations without proper due process, calling out the administration for ignoring constitutional requirements. But the legal failures are just the beginning of Trump's problems. The economic impact of his mass deportation campaign is devastating American industries and communities.
Thousands of young people
Construction,
dying,
manufacturing, agriculture, and service sectors that employ large numbers of immigrants are facing massive labor shortages.
I think Russia's lost over 20,000
Preliminary
since
Census
the
Bureau
beginning of the
data
year,
showed that 1.2 million immigrants left the U.S. workforce between January and July 2025 alone.
It's a terrible
Manuel Cunha
situation.
Jr., president of the Nisei Farmers League in California, warned that without immigrant workers, the country will stop, literally stop, because the food system won't move.
Not even a chance. And
this economic disruption isn't just hurting American businesses, it's undermining America's position as a reliable partner for international trade and cooperation. How can countries like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand trust America to maintain stable economic relationships when Trump's policies are creating massive internal disruption? Interestingly, while Trump's immigration policies are causing economic chaos, he's been hosting meetings with the major corporations where tech giants are making to U.S. infrastructure and job creation.
Would you say over the next few years?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant.
And Jim, how much money will Apple be investing in the United States? Because I know it's a very lot, and it's, you were elsewhere, and now you're really coming home in a big way. How much money will you be investing?
$600 billion.
$600 billion. All right. It's a lot of jobs.
We're very proud to do
it. But we have
companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft have announced investments totaling hundreds of billions of dollars. With Apple confirming $600 billion through 2028, Google announcing $250 billion over 2 years, and Microsoft committing to 75 or $80 billion annually. The irony is palpable. These companies are investing in an economy that Trump's immigration policies are simultaneously destabilizing. The international embarrassment goes even deeper. Trump's administration has been caught manipulating media coverage of deportations, posting images of shackled deportees on social media, and allowing celebrities like Dr. Phil to accompany ICE raids for publicity purposes. This meme-heavy publicity campaign run by political appointees in their 20s has been criticized by political commentators and scholars as unprofessional, intentionally cruel, and promoting white nationalism. Imagine being Kristi Noem, sitting in that London meeting room trying to maintain America's credibility with allied nations, while knowing that back home, your administration is posting videos of immigrants in chains for social media content. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Professional diplomacy in London, circus-like cruelty at home. The Five Eyes partners are also dealing with the reality that Trump's policies are creating refugees and asylum seekers who may end up seeking protection in their own countries. When the Trump administration strips legal protections from hundreds of thousands of people who entered the United States legally under previous programs, where do those people go? Some will inevitably seek asylum in Canada, the UK, Australia, or New Zealand, creating additional burdens for America's allies. This is the opposite of the cooperation and burden sharing that the Five Eyes Alliance is supposed to represent. Instead of working together to manage global migration flows, Trump's policies are creating additional problems that America's allies have to solve. The meeting in London also highlighted the fundamental differences in approach between Trump and America's allies. While the UK government says it won't leave the European Convention on Human Rights, despite pressure from opposition parties, Trump's administration routinely violates constitutional protections and international legal standards. Britain has struck deals with France to return some migrants who crossed the English Channel and is working on similar agreements with other countries, the kind of patient, multilateral diplomacy that actually works. Trump, meanwhile, has created a system where ICE agents raid houses of worship, schools, and hospitals, violating traditional sanctuary protections that have existed for centuries.
Add to that Iran, where
the
we wiped out
administration
their
reversed
nuclear
policies that
capacity
protected
for
sensitive
weapons.
locations,
They would have had a weapon
allowing
within 2
enforcement
months, maybe
actions in
less.
places that should
And
remain
that was
safe
totally
for vulnerable
obliterated.
populations.
Turned out it was a total
This isn't just bad
obliteration.
policy, it's a betrayal of
And,
American
the
values that
pilots
undermines
and
our
the people
moral
that did that
authority
job
with
are
allies.
really- we have
The data
greatest-
on Trump's
we have the
deportation
greatest
campaign
armed
reveals
forces in the
another
world,
layer of
but
failure.
That was really something.
Internal
In fact,
ICE
there's
statistics show that
a
less
model in
than
the plane
10%
right
of
there.
immigrants in ICE
You gotta
custody
bring
since
that up,
October
Susie. We have to
2024
see
had
that.
criminal offenses,
Look at this. This was
and
just given to me.
93% had no violent convictions.
You know, we ordered
The Cato
brand new
Institute
B-2
reported
bombers.
that 65% of people detained by ICE had
This is
no
a plane
criminal convictions at all.
that over
This
a
means
period
Trump
of
is
36
spending
hours
enormous resources to
of
deport
constant
people
flying.
who
Look
pose
at
no
this.
threat
This
to
is the
public
brand new
safety,
one they just ordered.
while failing to
Similar, but
focus on the
actually
actual
quite different.
criminals and security
It's, new
threats
and
that the
enhanced.
Five Eyes Alliance is supposed to
It's
address.
an amazing machine. It went
The
36
inefficiency
hours.
is staggering. While
We
Trump
had
promised the
52
largest
tankers
mass
up in the
deportation
air,
in U.S. history,
loading up our planes
NBC
because this was
reported that
surrounded by
ICE removed only
F-22s,
4,300
F-35s, and it
non-citizens
was
from the
flawless.
U.S. interior
Tim,
in
even you would say
February,
it was flawless.
slightly higher than Biden's
every
average,
one of
but
those
well below
bombs
the
hit their
Obama
target.
ad. Administration's
And then we had
12,900
Tomahawks shot in
removals per
from
month.
a submarine
So
300
Trump
miles
is creating
away.
massive legal,
And,
economic,
they hit
and
every
diplomatic
single
problems
Tomahawk hit its
while
target.
actually
It was
deporting
amazing.
fewer people than previous
that
administrations.
that was a big threat. That was a
The international
nuclear
implications
threat.
go beyond just
And
the
here's
Five Eyes
new one
Alliance.
that we just ordered.
The detention of
a
475
large number of
workers, more than 300 of them South Korean, in a raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia caused confusion, shock, and a sense of betrayal in South Korea, a crucial U.S. ally.
I don't
When
call
asked
it a
about
breakthrough.
this,
I mean, we've been
Noam
working on this
incredibly
a long
claimed
time.
that such
There are
raids would reassure
thousands
companies
of
because
young
you'll
people
know what the
dying,
rules of the
mostly
game
soldiers,
are.
but also,
This
you know,
tone-deaf
missiles being hit
response
into
shows how
Kiev and
completely
other places.
disconnected the Trump administration
But in
is
terms
from
of
diplomatic
soldiers, I think
reality.
Russia's lost over
You
20,000
don't reassure
since the
international
beginning of the
partners
year.
by
20,000.
arbitrarily detaining their
And,
citizens in workplace raids.
I guess the
The
estimate for
Supreme
Ukraine
Court
is
has had
about
to intervene
9,000.
repeatedly to block
It's a
Trump's most
terrible-
extreme
it's a terrible
policies.
situation. We want to
In
get it
April
stopped.
2025,
we don't
the
have
court ruled
American
against
soldiers
deportation
there,
of Venezuelans
but
held
I feel
in
I have an
Texas.
obligation to
Federal
get it
judges
stopped.
across
This
the
was not my
country
war.
have
This war
issued
would have never
injunctions
started,
against
not
various
even a
aspects
chance.
of
And it
Trump's
didn't start
mass deportation
for 4
campaign,
years. It went 4
finding
years,
constitutional
and it didn't
violations
start.
and
But
due process
this
failures.
is Biden's war.
This pattern
was-
of judicial rejection
was,
isn't
on
just
his
embarrassing, it demonstrates
And,
that
you know,
Trump's
it's funny, we
policies are
had,
fundamentally
no land was
incompatible
taken
with
from
American
Trump. It
law
was taken
and
from
democratic
Bush. It was
governance.
taken from
How can America
Biden, the whole
lead
thing
international
would
security
take from Biden.
cooperation when its
It worked
own
for us.
government can't follow
But it
its own
was,
laws?
and it was
The
taken
religious
by
freedom implications
Obama.
are
Take a look
particularly
at what
damaging
was
to
taken
America's international
with all
reputation.
of the land that was taken.
A coalition
Nothing was
of more
taken
than
by
2
Russia
dozen
from us.
Christian and
Not
Jewish denominations
1 ounce of land was
sued
taken.
the Department of Homeland
I'm here
Security
to get
over
the
ICE
thing
raids
over
in
with.
houses of worship,
It would have never started
arguing
if
that
I were
such
president.
actions
And
violate First
we're here
Amendment
to get it
protections.
stopped and get the
The
death
Quakers
stopped. Yeah,
Coalition
please.
specifically noted that their practice of communal worship is uniquely harmed by the possibility of immigration arrest, as worship involves congregants sitting in
Can't answer
silence
the
to
question
await
yet.
divine
I'll tell
messages.
you, in a matter of weeks,
When America's
maybe less.
own religious communities are
we've made a
suing
lot
the
of
government
progress.
for
And as you
violating
know, we put a
religious liberty,
50%
how
tariff
can we
on
credibly
India,
advocate for
on oil.
religious
They're the
freedom
second largest. They're
internationally?
very close to
The
China in
economic
terms
data
of the
reveals
purchase
the
of
full
oil
scope of Trump's policy
from
failure.
Russia.
Adam
But-
Tooze
so I don't know
warned
if
that the
that had
planned
anything to do with
deportations
it,
would
but we've
cause a
had very
series of
productive
rolling
talks
shocks
today,
to a
yes,
large part of the U.S. economy, affecting not just sectors that employ immigrants directly, but raising prices
We're
throughout
considering
the
it,
economy.
yeah, because the crime
Construction,
is ridiculous.
manufacturing, agriculture,
I could show
service,
you a
and
chart
childcare sectors
comparing
are
DC
all
to other
facing
locations,
severe labor
and you're not going to want to
shortages.
see what it looks like.
The lack of childcare
It was
alone
just
is
up on
prompting people
television,
to leave
actually,
the
they were showing
workforce,
it.
creating additional
we want to have
economic
a great,
disruption.
safe capital.
Meanwhile, the Five
We're
Eyes
gonna have it,
partners are
and that
watching this
includes
economic
cleanliness, and it
self-destruction
includes other
and
things.
wondering
We
whether
have
America can be a reliable
capital that's very
economic partner.
unsafe. You know, we just
If
almost
Trump's
lost a young
policies are
man.
creating domestic
Beautiful,
economic
handsome guy
chaos,
that
how can the U.S.
got the hell
maintain the
knocked out of
stable
him
trade relationships
the
and
night before
economic
last.
cooperation that underpin
And,
the Five Eyes Alliance? The
I'm
meeting in
gonna call
London
him
was
now.
supposed to
We wanted
focus
to
on
give him a little
tackling
recovery
migrant
time.
smuggling criminal gangs.
We just put a call into him.
Exactly
We'll call
the
him back
kind
in a
of
little while, but
international
he
organized
went through,
crime that requires sustained cooperation
bad
and intelligence
situation.
sharing.
To put it mildly.
But Trump's approach
And there's too
actually
much
makes
of
this
it. We're gonna-
cooperation more
We're going to do
difficult.
something about it. So
When the U.S. violates international legal standards
that
and
also
constitutional
includes
protections,
the graffiti
it becomes
that you
harder
see,
for
the
allied law
papers all
enforcement
over the
agencies
place,
to
the
share
roads that are in
sensitive
bad
intelligence
shape,
and
the
coordinate
medians
joint
that are falling
operations.
down, the median in between roads
Intelligence
that's falling
sharing
down.
depends on trust
We're going
and
to
legal
beautify the city.
compatibility.
We're going to make it beautiful.
When Trump's administration
And,
routinely violates due process
shame.
and constitutional
The rate
protections,
of crime, the
allied
rate of
intelligence
muggings,
services
killings,
have to
and everything
question
else,
whether
we're not gonna
information they share will be used in ways that comply with their own legal and ethical standards. This undermines the very foundation of the Five Eyes intelligence partnership.
We're going to look at
the
that.
humanitarian
In fact,
crisis created by Trump's policies is also straining relationships with allies.
This has to be the best run
When the administration
place in
strips
the country,
legal
not the
protections
worst
from
run place in
hundreds
the
of
country.
thousands of people who
And it
entered
has so
legally
much
under previous
potential.
programs, it
And we're
creates a
gonna take care of
massive
it.
humanitarian
You're going to be
emergency.
safe. You're going to be safe
Some of these
walking down
people will
streets. You're not
inevitably
going to
seek
get mugged.
asylum in allied countries, creating additional burdens for America's partners. The administration's policy of encouraging
Well, we'll determine
self-deportation
that
by
later,
using
but
harsh
right now they're
tactics
paying
and
a
promising
50%
money to
tariff.
people who leave voluntarily is creating fear and instability in immigrant communities across America. Schools are reporting reduced attendance as families fear ICE raids. Immigrant-rich neighborhoods are seeing declines in foot traffic and commerce as people become afraid to leave their homes. This social disruption doesn't stay contained within America's borders. It affects trade, tourism, and cultural exchange with allied nations. The contrast between Trump's domestic failures and the professional cooperation expected at Five Eyes meetings couldn't be more stark. While Noam was discussing sophisticated international security challenges in London, back home the administration was facing criticism for using deportation as political theater, posting social media content of immigrants in chains, and allowing reality TV personalities to participate in enforcement operations. This isn't just unprofessional, it's actively damaging to America's international relationships. Allied governments need to know they're dealing with serious, competent partners who can maintain confidentiality and professionalism in security operations. Trump's circus-like approach to immigration enforcement sends exactly the opposite message. The legal challenges continue to mount, with federal courts repeatedly finding that Trump's policies violate constitutional protections and international legal standards.
So let's see what happens.
The administration's attempts to use expedited removal procedures in the interior have been blocked by multiple federal judges who found them incompatible with due process requirements. These judicial defeats aren't just domestic political problems, they signal to international partners that America's government can't be trusted to follow its own laws. The Five Eyes Alliance depends on each member nation maintaining stable, law-based governance. When one member is routinely violating its own constitutional principles, it undermines the entire partnership.
We're going to look at that. We're talking about
How can allied intelligence services trust information from an administration that federal judges have repeatedly found to be violating the law?
Whether you're Republican
the economic disruption caused by Trump's mass deportation campaign is also affecting America's ability to contribute effectively to international partnerships. When domestic policies are creating labor shortages, economic instability, and business uncertainty, it becomes much harder to maintain the kind of stable, long-term international commitments that alliances like Five Eyes require. The meeting in London was supposed to demonstrate American leadership in international security cooperation. Instead, it highlighted how Trump's extremist domestic policies are undermining America's ability to be an effective partner in addressing global challenges. While other Five Eyes nations are pursuing sophisticated, multilateral approaches to migration and security challenges, America under Trump is pursuing policies that create more problems than they solve. The ultimate irony is that Trump's approach is actually making America less secure, not more secure. By alienating allies, violating constitutional protections, and creating economic and social disruption at home, Trump is undermining the very security partnerships and domestic stability that effective border security requires. The Five Eyes meeting in London should have been an opportunity for America to demonstrate leadership in addressing shared security challenges. Instead, it became another example of how Trump's failures are isolating America from its allies and making the world less safe for everyone. Thanks for watching. If you want to see how Trump's other policies are backfiring internationally, check out our other videos. And if you want to stay updated on how Trump's failures are affecting America's relationships with allies around the world, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth analysis.